là anh session 2 là sau cùng ấy nhỉ?
Không phải ạ, vậy là trong session 1 thì thứ tự như thế nào ấy ạ? Thì trong session 1
ok.
Là anh Đạt sẽ nói sau đúng không anh Đạt? Em nói trước đúng không?
Session 1 và video của mình là đoạn cuối cùng của session 1.
Cái phần online meditation là Tony cover luôn đấy chứ hả? Chứ tại vì session 2 là không Đạt cover hả? Tại vì anh xem bài của Kevin lẫn Hợp thì đều không cover gì vấn đề đấy đâu. Mà anh nghĩ là cả hai người đấy cũng chả có biết gì về cái đó đâu.
Và cái này thì anh Đạt với em phân công nhau làm rồi ạ.
Thế tốt, tại vì anh thấy tiêu đề session của anh là cả trọng tài lẫn hòa giải thì nó không được match lắm với cả cái tiêu đề.
Thổi gió ở đầu ấy nhỉ?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, on behalf of the organizer, the Vietnam International Arbitration Center, and the ICC International Court of Arbitration, I am delighted to meet all of you who are with us today from Vietnam, Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, India, Switzerland, Bangladesh, and Italy, and also many other countries. Thanks to the advancement of information technology and its application, VIAP and ICC could have the pleasure to welcome all of you to the webinar, International Arbitration in the New Normal, What to Expect and to be Noted. We are now managing to deal with many adversities caused by the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic all over the world. And here in Vietnam, though the virus transmission is kept under control, the center of Vietnam is suffering severe damage and immense difficulties caused by the landslides and flood. As we are united today, I wish all the best to us and everything will be better soon. Dear colleagues and friends, our webinar will consist 2 main sessions with 5 excellent speakers delivering presentations and 2 moderators helping us regarding the time allocation and panel discussion. And now, without further ado, I would like to give you Mr. Vũ Ánh Dương, Permanent Vice President of VIAP, with a few words to begin our webinar.
Thanks, Ms. Han. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It can be observed that even before the COVID-19 pandemic, modern information technology has gradually been integrated into the traditional arbitration procedures. Terms like online filing, video conference, virtual hearings, and case management websites have now become familiar with not only the arbitration services providers, but also enterprises using arbitrations. Looking into practice of other jurisdictions, take Singapore and China, for instance, they have successfully deployed commonplace and less complex information technologies into the conventional proceedings. Although experts still have varying opinions on the efficiencies and securities of online dispute resolutions, it is safe to say that it is the future of alternative dispute resolutions sooner or later. However, it is not until the COVID-19 pandemic that online dispute resolution begins to flourish. Today, with our venue partner, the International Chamber of Commerce, we are proud to jointly host the 2020 annual event with the introductions of IT advancements, a webinar on the international arbitration in the new normal, what to expect and to be noted. This webinar is held with the aim of providing a forums for arbitrators, lawyers, and enterprises seeking to use arbitrations, and anyone interested in online dispute resolutions to exchange and discuss their opinions with regard to the advantages and shortcomings, practical issues, risks, and lessons learned experiences of these methods. With such intention in mind, we hope the webinar will prepare legal practitioners for the potential issues and help enterprises be aware of the advantages of the ODR, as well as the legal risks that come with it. I would like to express our sincere thanks to all distinguished speakers and moderators who will be deliver presentation in this event, and all the attendees. Last but not least, a special thanks to ICC for co-hosting these webinars. I believe this webinar will bring useful information and knowledge to your professional activities. I wish you a good health and success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dương, and your welcome remark. I believe the guests are now very exciting to move to the section 1. Section 1 will be with the moderator, Ms. Summer Wei. Ms. Summer Wei is the managing partner of Lending Law Office in Nanning, China, and she will soon take the role of the senior partner of Lending Law Office in Vietnam. Ms. Wei is about to complete the 2-year unique professional training as the member for the ICC Advanced Arbitration Academy for Asia. And I'd like to invite Ms. Wei and her speakers in the section 1.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure and honor to virtually meet everyone here with the use of the advanced information technology. Today, we're here to discuss with the experts of what to expect and to be noted regarding the use of information technology in ADRs. This is an interesting and heating discussion topic, both in China and globally, during the COVID-19 period, and might significantly change the post-COVID legal landscape. Experts have varied opinions on using IT and ADRs. Therefore, our expert today will discuss how innovation digital technology will substantially as well as procedurally impact on international arbitration as well as mediation now, and how it may impact on ADR in the future. We hope to have a few minutes at the end for Q&A section. So please feel free to say ask questions so we have the resource to improve for ourselves. Firstly, I will spend a few minutes to introduce the experts in the panel today. We bring in experts, speakers, both from Vietnam as well as ICC International Court of Arbitration. Our first expert in the first section is Mr. Phan. He is the Vice Secretary General at Vietnam International Arbitration Center, as well also he is the Standing Deputy Director of Vietnam Mediation Center. Our second expert in the first section is Mr. Tony Win. He is the Deputy Director of VMC and is an arbitrator and member of Science Council at VIAC. Also, he is a founding partner of EP Legal. Now, our last expert is Ms. Bao. He is an independent arbitrator at Arbitration Center, Arbitration Chambers, and Vice President at ICC International Court of Arbitration, Hong Kong. Then, I will take a couple minutes to set out the scene for this section's panel discussion. The concept of information technology is broad enough to encompass all electronic means to produce, modify, capture, store, transmit, and display information. Online dispute resolution is not a new concept. Jurisdictions like Singapore and mainland China have introduced online litigation, putting to good use of commonplace and less complex IT and traditional proceeding. It's become apparent that the use and acceptance of IT in ADRs has substantially increased, and advance in technology has led to solutions that previously was not readily available or technology mature. Therefore, the landscape of ADR might be forever changed by the pandemic. Neither user of these IT products are less concerned about confidentiality, security, or data integrity issue. The more important issue to them are accessibility and simplicity of use. A party should be allowed to use whatever IT the party believes is appropriate to fully present its case. However, we should keep in mind fundamental principle of fairness to all parties, as well as due process. So, the framework today is to discuss how IT can be used in ADRs in a cost-effective, fair, and efficient manner. Given that latest experiences are often reported immediately to the Institute, we first invite Mr. Fan to share with us about the progress as well as user experience of online mediation at Vietnam Mediation Center. Now I pass the voice to Mr. Fan. Mr. Fan.
Thank you, Summer Wei. Well, I'm very pleased to be invited to be the first speaker of the first panel today talking about the trend mediation. Mediation is newer to arbitration. The online mediation is even newer. So I think that's why the moderator, Ms. Summer Wei, allows me to speak first. Well, I know that time limit is very short. I have around 10 minutes, and my presentation will have only some slides and then around 3-minute video clip, which I'll be the narrator for you. Background. Well, for the background, you see that. Could you please the background? Well, everyone knows that the trend for all online and everything online. Zoom is an example of the product, which is a very hot trend right now. So we have collected here some points that coherent with what Ms. Summer Wei had just talked about. First, the increasing number of cross-border transactions and disputes. Second, the development and application of communication technology. And then, certainly, COVID-19 is just a stimulus. I said that because online dispute resolution is already a trend in recent years, for a few years, not only since last year, 19. So in the world, we see that there are some other platform ODR from CHAMS or from CDR, etc. So in Vietnam, it's safe to say that VMC, Vietnam Mediation Center, a division of Vietnam International Arbitration Center, is the first organization to think about the platform and to prepare professionally and comprehensively about the platform, which we are going to show you the demonstration right in a few minutes. So for the overview of our online mediation at VMC, you see that we put 5 features. It is an independent platform administered by VMC independently. The second very important feature is a one-stop shop. By one-stop shop, it means that clients just visit and enter the platform, the website, and be provided with a password, and then everything on the platform. We will show you later on, but you see that there will be a very environmentally friendly, no paper needed, only just clicking, and even payment online too. It's easily accessed, transparent, and highly secure and confidential. We have noticed the concerns of confidentiality through the internet, hacking and other things like that, especially when we talk about mediation and arbitration and about dispute resolution in general. Clients cares about confidentiality a lot, and we as the provider, as the platform provider, we cares about it more. And when we test the platform, when it can be safe that a kind of hacking on everything is good, is safe, then we launch the official one. the final thing we would like to show is if you are familiar with traditional mediation, every center has its own mediation rules. VMC has its own too. So we put here five main differences between the two rules. We have not launched officially our online mediation rules. Yes, we are drafting the rules, but we put here five main differences and would like to show you here first. The first one, of course, is the filing of request for mediation and all the statement, reply, exchange of documents on the platform. Yeah, on the platform. Whereas for the traditional one, it should be via register mail or fax or email. Second one is appointment of mediator. We plan that to save time. It is our center's decision on appointment of mediator. The party agrees on the rules. The rule provides that the VMC director appoint the mediator, and then when the party click on the platform and make the request for online mediation, then we will automatically save as much time as possible to appoint the right mediator for the party. The third one is the regulatory time limits. So you see here, for example, the first joint mediation session, we put it no later than 15 days from the date of mediator's appointment. Whereas for the normal one, we just put it that the requirement for mediator is to make it efficiently and fast. It's no time limit like the 15 days time limit. The fourth difference is the mediation session are scheduled and conducted online. And fifth, the final one, of course, is online payment. You don't have to go to the bank to make money transfer. So yeah, we are going to finish my presentation, and in order to make it easier for all of you to understand and imagine how our system runs, we'll show you a demonstration video which shows the main functions of our online mediation platform. Well, although this is yet to be the final interface, the main functions are designed and being finalized, which meets the requirements of a mediation process conducted online. You see here the first step and the second step is the parties' information. In order to use our platform and the online mediation service, you need an account on our system. And upon registration of an account, at the first and second step, you will be required to fill in detailed information about yourself, about your company, and the other party with whom you're having disputes. Well, the first and second step take long, take your time. Now the third step is to describe the dispute. At this step, you will be required to briefly describe your dispute and confirm whether you and the other party have had an agreement to mediate, and provide such an agreement accordingly. Information as to the value of your dispute will also be required. The fourth step, it is VMC job to appoint a mediator and inform the parties. Upon appointment, the mediator shall communicate with the parties about how to proceed further, including to schedule and conduct mediation sessions. As you can see, scheduling is easier and faster on the platform, as there are many time slots available for the parties' election. Our system will generate a mutual slot of the soonest time, especially both joint and private mediation sessions can be conducted directly and entirely on our platform without referring to any other third-party application. Payment is the fifth one. Another important function is the payment of mediation fees and costs. And as you can see on the screen, payment can be made directly on your platform, which is similar to any other online shopping payment, easily done. And finally, for the management, our system is also designed to be user-friendly, which makes it easier for the parties and mediator to manage and update the status of your own case. While we expect that when we officially launch this system very soon, we expect to launch it within this year, we'll meet the demand of all clients, especially those who do not want to move, do not want to send documents. For example, who want to trade online, and also for in the finance section, for example. Well, that's all for my presentation and demonstration. Thank you for listening, and I pass the mic to Ms. Summer Wei. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you for Mr. Fang for showing us how the online mediation really runs in real world. We all recognize the important roles that the Council played in ensuring disputes will continue to be resolved on a fair, expeditious, and cost-effective basis. Now, Mr. Tony Win will share with us his experience and opinions and the case management technique designed to make the ADR, online ADR procedure cost-effective and efficient.
Thank you very much, Mr. Summer Wei. Firstly, I have to say that looking at the presentation of Mr. Dat made me feel quite pressured. The information is quite new. I mean, even to the international users. The platform looks very state-of-the-art. And now my presentation within 10 minutes, I'm going to give you some information, background information of the ODR and what ODR means, and in international and from Vietnamese perspective, what has been done and what could be done in the future of the COVID-19 pandemics. So I hope my sharing is successful. Firstly, ODR means an alternative dispute resolution. And this is distinguished from the normal ADR because it is based on the online platforms and using the normally the state-of-the-art IT technology. There are two different types of ODR. The first type has been known for a very long time. It's the ODR, which is supported by the information technology techniques. And people use many tools online and through the websites, email platforms, and other IT technology to assist their case management. For example, LCIA, as you can see here, I put it the LCIA online filing, as we can see the description they put on their own website, will file requests for arbitration and responses, applications, and expedited information, and submit any support documentation electronically. So everyone can just get on their website, log in their account, and then do all the procedures, including paying and filing fees online. And then the system will generate the documents at the conclusion of the process for the parties. So the parties can print or save to their computer. And it works not only for the parties and the tribunal, but also for the online platform and the arbitration institute itself to manage all the cases within their portfolio. So that's the first system. We use the emails, we use the online system to help the parties. And then the parties may still, and the tribunal may still work on the normal hearing process or the issuance of the awards, not fully online. So it could be part online and partly traditional way. And the second system that has been talked a lot in the recent months, especially during the COVID-19 era, is the fully integrated system. So with this system, the whole process will be put online. So you are not going to do anything offline. You are even organizing hearing and organizing the post-hearing procedures on the platform. So the platform given will have the functions to assist from the beginning to the end, and everything will be put in an integrated system, and you can extract information whenever you want. I think what Mr. Dat just explained in his presentation is fall under the second category of the ODR. We can see a number of institutions who are using the system. The Tamara Transport and Maritime Aviation Rotterdam Amsterdam, WIPO, LCIA, and the private parties like eBay or Amazon. They have their own dispute resolution system. But I have to note that there is one outstanding system which has been introduced for quite a number of years in Europe called Online Dispute Resolution Europe, the ODR Europe. And this system is almost like a compulsory for the B2C, the consumer disputes. So this platform focus on one particular type of international disputes. It's on the dispute between the consumer and the trader. And the system works in a way that the trader will almost be forced to deal with the dispute raised by the online users. And as a matter of fact, eBay is still using its own ODR system, but Amazon, for example, already referred all the cases they have, all the disputes they have to ODR Europe. And we can see this is the eBay ODR system. It's quite simple. If you buy an item or you sold an item, you will have the options to put forward. If you receive the item or you haven't received the item, you just put as an option, and then you put forward the details of your billing. But the most important feature of this ODR system is that you have to be engaged from the very beginning in the trade itself. So you must have a particular number of your purchase, and you must have purchased it from the online platform of eBay, for example. So it is a little bit inflexible if you want to use it for other type of disputes. But other forms of ODR, for example, the ICC, that I think here we have a lot of ICC experts, and VMC, as Mr. Dat just explained, and some other, in Vietnam, we have seen another organization, HIAC, they're trying to do the same, but I have very limited information of that. But for VMC, I'm pretty sure that the flexibility is in that it can apply for any type of disputes and between any dispute parties. For VIAC, I will use my last couple of minutes to talk about the VIAC practice during the COVID-19 period. Since March, I think it's 30th March 2020, VIAC provided, issued a notice of arbitration and mediation at this institute, including VIAC and Vietnam Mediation Center. during the outbreak of the COVID-19. And under this notice, we can call the guidance, the filing of the request for arbitration, statement of claim, statement of defense, all kind of communications between the parties will normally be electronic, but the important documents, including the RFA, the request for arbitration, and the statements will still be introduced in hard copy. This is a requirement for filing and for recording of the institution. The award itself must be in hard copy with the signature of the arbitrator or the arbitrators in the tribunal. And apart from these documents, all other communications between the parties will be electronic, and it will allow the parties to do even the online hearing. And since March 2020, 14 cases have been heard virtually in the VIAC. And regarding the online filing system, I understand that VIAC is in the process of selecting the contractors to provide this system. It may refer to the VMC developed system to combine this online platform technology, or you could use a separate system, I don't know, but the main feature of it will be likely following the e-filing model of LCIA or the JAM. We hope that in the future, VIAC will also have a full ODR version used for both functions of the ODR, both for filing system and also for the fully integrated system. And there's a few legal constraints that under the law, the parties we need to obtain the parties' approval for the virtual hearing. And some of the documents, as we've seen before, must be produced in hard copies. And some other practical problems, but I will leave it to the next speakers to talk about: the bandwidth, the cyber securities, and the different type of visual assistance and documentation online. The last few slides are actually the ODR platform that we are developing for a few users, including VMC. But this one is for arbitration. It's quite similar to what Mr. Dat just explained, apart from the fact that this is the arbitration. That is it. And I really think that the outlook for ODR in Vietnam is a very good outlook. And thank you for listening to my presentation. I will leave the floor to the moderator now.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. If IT to be used in ADR, what issues should be addressed? I already saw a lot of questions have bring up in the Q&A section, and Ms. Bao had rich experience in ICC court as well as HKIAC court. Now, Ms. Bao will share with us the topic, including but not limited to what does technology would change organization and realm of arbitration in such a digital age. How is current practice of ODR? What are the recent trends? Will virtual arbitration become the new normal? What is a factor or issues that actually might restrict the future development of ODR? Will the online system reduce the cost and improve the efficiency of ADRs? Okay, I pass the voice talk to Ms. Bao.
Thank you, Ms. Wei, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you to VIAC for your excellent introduction and bringing us all together today. I have to say I am very impressed by the two previous speakers and all that VIAC has done and is doing in the way of ODR and ADR. I have now had a taste as to what online mediation looks like in Vietnam, as well as all of the progressive efforts that are being done. And I do have to say that when we come out of this pandemic, I expect that, in fact, Asian institutions and indeed Asia will be much more prepared than the rest of the world in engaging in ODR. Now, all of these various technical aspects that we have heard about are, I think, a very important progress and noteworthy. And it's also important to hear that these tools are already being engaged. And what I wish to do is give a bit of a macro perspective as to how we got here and how we will integrate the blank screen, the in-person hearing, and the brain and the use of the brain. The technical aspects are, as I've mentioned, are indeed admirable. And I think we will continue to see this in the post-pandemic. But one of the things that we have to focus on, of course, is how we as humans engage with all of these technical aspects. And that will, I think, determine as to whether we will be continuing to use these tools when we can fly again and when we can engage in person. To take a bit of a step back, I wanted to take stock as to what ICC is doing already. And I know that my colleague, other court member, Kevin Kim, will give a description as to the virtual hearing note and all of the aspects that ICC has progressed since the pandemic. I wanted to also take a step back and look at the technical aspects and the hardware of the ICC that it is engaging in now. And one is with the case administration called iCase. Now, this is a case administration function or software that will be allow for greater efficiency within the case administration. As for the work of the court, we are already seeing great use of technology to make more efficient engagement between the case administration team and the secretariat and the court. And all of our materials are now online as well as paperless. And so we will continue to see increased progress and efficiency on an internal level from within the case administration. And then from the ODR perspective, in that indeed the case management platform for users, the external platform for users, much that has been described by my previous two speakers, will be, is also in progress now, and it has been in progress for some time, but now that we see that it is truly something that will be used in the future, we will see, I think, continued progress and a launch of this type of process in the near future. But as I say, this is all structural, and all of these tools are handy and wonderful, but unless our brains can get ourselves around the use of this kind of technology, the question is, when we can get on a plane in the future, or when we can distribute our materials in a different format, will we revert back to our traditional means? And this, as I say, really has to do with ease of use. Now, I have seen different ODR systems being rolled out around the world. And of course, there are different users who have different attributes. And one of the great features that I've seen as these projects have been managed have related to the user perspective, the usability of this ODR and how convenient it is. We have seen, for example, in Utah, the rolling out of a program on ODR, and they have tested it with thousands of users to ensure that ease of use of each of these types of facilities. And it is with this kind of application and this type of consultation that will really allow for the arbitration and the ODR, ADR platforms on ODR to be applied in a meaningful way. Now, when I have mentioned the use of the brain, one of the things that I wanted to raise a few points on in relation to what we are already using in the current climate in relation to virtual hearing is that of how our virtual hearings are impacting and things that we can do to kind of impact, allow for a more brain-friendly use of virtual hearing. And this last bit that I want to raise, this last section of my presentation that I want to raise really kind of segues into the next session. But really, I want to give you a sense as to the things that we might want to think about to adapt to the virtuality of our hearing process. Now, we know that there has been a phenomenon called Zoom fatigue. And there are several reasons for this. Now, first of all, we have evolved to interact with one another in 3-dimension and tactile format, and our brains are highly trained to process this information we see as a whole in those 3-dimensional world using body language and speech, etc. Now, if you take this out of sync, our brain has to then run a different calculation in order to process the same information. On virtual screen, we're also seeing that we actually have less information to go on. And what that means is that, in fact, what we're seeing is that we only have, in fact, when you see this screen with the virtual background, you only have the face, and the face to kind of read into the information that can help you process what is being said. Now, the hands are also important. So everybody can appreciate the importance of hand gestures. On video calls, you can't see that. And so to be able to make assumptions as to what your facial expressions are and your hand gestures are important to take into account as you are in this virtual world. And finally, the anxiety associated with technology. Now, this is not only in the virtual world, but also as well in the ODR world. Questions as to cybersecurity, questions as to whether there is successful receipt of information and where that information actually goes. As we know, our information is digested in a physical way. And in fact, we've already moved from emailing physical documents feeling quite traditional and in fact old school to now sending links, assuming that that link will be received and can be received and opened and engaged on a virtual manner. And so this kind of engagement is already changing the landscape of what we're used to. And so a few takeaways, now I've kind of identified some of the brain related issues and how we react to things, is engaging for now in terms of the virtuality of our hearing. The way in which we engage is to see how far we can take the virtual hearing into as real in-person situation as we can. And what I mean by that is, in fact, there are many ways in which we can adapt our screen. We all know already that the technology is moving much more quickly than we had ever anticipated. Indeed, the new feature for Zoom is this interpretation feature. And so there are many ways in which we will see the evolution of technology adapt and allow for us to take on new adaptations for an in-person like situation. And so it's important to ensure that we focus on the things that we can adapt, including the visual aspect of our hearing, including ensuring that we recognize that our brains can only function for a limited period of time, as well as the fact that witnesses only have a certain attention span online, and all of these factors have to be taken and accounted for when we deal with the ADR, the ODR virtual hearing world. And so as we come out of this pandemic, with all of this technology that has already been introduced, as well as the ICC
Sorry
we,
for interrupt. Sorry
yeah.
for interrupt because we had to left for a few minutes for the question.
Yeah.
Q&A
And I
section.
just wanted to say that I think we want to ensure that we recognize that our brains are ready to adapt with the technology that has already been introduced, as well as our virtual world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we have 4 minutes for the Q&A section. It's very interesting. The second section, second question about the physical and factual expressions during the mediation and negotiation, and is it really work by its online virtual version? I pass this question to Mr. Fang because maybe he has experience at handling 14 cases in the past.
Go ahead.
So, could you repeat the question, please?
The question is the second question. The question is, I read some books about mediation where the physical and facial expressions are mentioned to be important to the mediator in the working with parties. Even in negotiation, such physical feature is also important. So the question from the audience or the participants is that if mediation is made online, how could be mediator or the counsel get the facial expressions of others to be functional?
Yes. Well, that may be a kind of disadvantage of online mediation. The mediation practitioners all know that one of the mediator skills is to talk, to ask, and to hear actively with the party jointly or in a private meeting. And I agree to Chien Bao's opinions about the facial behaviors, also the body language, gesture and hand language, everything like this of the party show to the mediator the emotion, the stage of dispute, the gaps between the party, whether closer or still very, very far away, something like that. So, of course, it is a kind of disadvantage of online mediation. But we hope that all the parties and the mediators know in advance the disadvantage of such online mediation, and in order to select whether to use online mediation or traditional normal mediation procedure for their own specific disputes. So yes, we agree to the question about that fact, but yeah, we can do nothing about that technologically because one is physical and the other one is virtual. Yes.
Yeah, we have a last minute for the last question. The question is from the participant from Delhi. The question is, does ODR system reduce the huge cost of arbitration to be bought by the parties? I want to pass this question to Ms. Bao. Ms. Bao?
Sorry. Sorry. And this question is the second question, is it?
Last one.
The last one. Does ODR system reduce the huge costs? Yes, well, now I think it certainly can do. The idea is that ODR is intended to ensure a cost and time effective arbitration. However, it really depends on how the parties engage with it and how usable the ODR system is. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. In order to establish an effective ODR system, it has to be stress tested, just like a set of institutional rules. All of these new systems have to be tested by actual users to ensure that all of the different nuances that one might need and require in an arbitration are addressed in the ODR system. Because if it's not, it could add additional costs and further costs that an otherwise non-ODR arbitration proceeding might have. So as with everything, the short answer is maybe, it depends, but it is intended to, yes.
Okay, yeah. Due to the time limitation, maybe I had to say an end to the first section. Finally, I want to thanks for all the experts and for your sharing practical experience. And thank you for the participants in Facebook as well as Zoom. Okay, it's the end to the first section.
Thank you, Ms. Summer Wei, and all the speakers of the session one. I think we have a very fruitful session with a lot of questions, and for all the questions that have been sent to the speaker that which was not able to be respond within the webinar, we will ensure that all this the question will be sent to the speakers, and we will post the respond on our fan page. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Nguyễn Mạnh Dũng, the moderator of the session, to the practice note to the parties to mediate or arbitrate online, and his speakers. Mr. Dũng, please.
Thank you, Han. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning or good evening, wherever you are. I noticed that lots of the audience came from abroad, so we are very pleased to welcome you to join the webinar between the ICC and VIAC. It's my great pleasure to moderate the second session on the online arbitration. I'm very impressed that the first question in the webinar is actually about the importance of the SIT and the virtual hearing. The question came from the Chinese user who really appreciates the importance of the virtual hearing, and the user even considered to change the SIT of arbitration just because of that reason. In summary, a lot of the arbitration user now want to use the advantage of the virtual hearing or remote arbitration proceeding, and that's why it's important for our second session. In the second session, we have only two speakers. The first speaker is Dr. Đặng Xuân Hợp, or we call it is Dr. Hợp Đăng. Dr. Hợp Đăng is a full-time independent arbitrator in Hợp Đăng Chamber in Hanoi, Vietnam. He received his legal training in Vietnam and Australia, and wrote his doctoral thesis at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom. After over 2 decades of legal practice with an international law firm, he became a full-time arbitrator in 2018. He has been appointed as co-arbitrator, sole arbitrator, or chairman in a number of the cases at the Vietnam International Arbitration Center, Singapore International Arbitration Center, SIAC, the ICC, Stockholm Chamber of Commerce, FCC, and other institutions. He has written and lectured intensively in the area of conflict of law, investment, and dispute resolution. He is currently a senior fellow at the Law Faculty of the University of Melbourne, Australia. I'm sure that Hợp Đăng is very familiar with almost the local audience, and Herb will present to you today about the practical notes on the online arbitration proceeding, and I'm sure that he will give the arbitrator and the counsel a few practical tips to you at the virtual hearing. Hợp Đăng, the floor is yours. 15 minutes time.
Thank you, Mr. Dũng. That's very kind of you, and thank you to everybody. It's my pleasure to be joining this discussion organized by the VIAC and the ICC on the new normal situation, as just been said. Now, my presentation will, I'm trying to share with you some of the my practical insight in relation to online arbitrum proceedings that I have conducted in the past few months in the COVID-19 pandemic. Everybody's experience might be different, and every case might be different as well, but I'll try to run you through a few general points, and then I'll conclude with some of the tips that I've managed to put together after some of the hearings that I've done recently. Now, virtual proceedings. I mean, just yesterday, I had a case at the SIAC, and the hearing is now set for early June next year. And the 3 members of the tribunal are thinking that, by June next year, the situation might have improved and it might be possible for the tribunal and council to get together in Singapore in the usual manner. So we put out in the procedural order the possibility of conducting a physical hearing in Singapore next year. Within 24 hours, both council wrote back saying that both parties suggested that it should be conducted virtually in order to speed up the process as well as to reduce the costs. And so if the council has so proposed, the tribunal has nothing to say, and we've agreed to conduct the hearing virtually, even when this is set for June next year. So the point there is, I think this is going to be the trend for a number of cases, I think. Not all cases, obviously, and not for everybody, but it's going to be a big trend. And as someone was saying earlier, that the pandemic has somewhat sort of sped this up in an incredible manner, and it might fundamentally change the world of arbitration in the years to come. Now, let me just run through this generally. In terms of the advantages of the proceeding online, convenience is obviously a big point. You can do this from basically your home, at a hotel room, wherever you like. Whereas before, in the traditional way, you would have had to fly up somewhere and be in a formal room somewhere, like the Maximum Chambers or at the hearing facility of the VIAC in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City. So it's quite convenient, and for obvious reason, these days a lot of people prefer to be just where they are. Efficiency is a big thing, as you know. I mean, in the case that I did last year, involving maybe about 50 or so people, we did it online, and people were dialing in from London, Singapore, Australia, Vietnam, Thailand, Europe. And in the old days, all of these 50 people would have had to fly to Singapore, camping out there for 2 weeks. And the cost would have been quite substantial for everybody, in particular for some of the expert witnesses who only had to be present for about maybe 2 or 3 hours for examination. And they would have had to fly in from Europe or America, wherever they were, and the fly would have been just 2 days or something, and the cost would have been quite substantial. In this case, the expert was just giving evidence from wherever he was. He might have been on holiday or something, so somewhere in Europe. So it was very, very efficient, and a lot of costs were saved. The Maximum Chambers was helping out with technology, and I assume there was some cost to pay for that, but it would have been minimal compared to other flight tickets and the hotel accommodation bills that would have been incurred. So very, very efficient cost-wise, needless to say, nothing new there. Flexibility is also a big thing. When they wanted to change a particular hearing date, one of the tribunal members said, "Oh, I can't do that date." Why? Because I have a 2-hour meeting in the morning, sort of late in the morning. And the answer was easy. That's fine. We just start early in the morning, and when the time comes for the meeting, let's have a break. You can have your meeting wherever it was in London, and then after 2 hours you can come back and we resume the hearing online. So the flexibility, which is great. You could still do the hearing online and at the same time take care of other commitments that you have around it. So probably nothing new there to you, all the advantages. But what about the disadvantages? And as I said at the beginning, in my view at least, online hearing is not for every case. I think for most cases, but not for every case. Why is that? Now, number one, there's no real contact in the sense that there is no real human contact, no eye contact, no body language, you know, and somebody was saying, referring to this in the context of mediation. I mean, it's a disadvantage. You can't look into the eyes of anyone like Kausum or expert and ask them, are you serious in making this proposition? And see what the reaction would be. And you can't do that here. Doesn't matter how big the screen might be. You can't look at the person in the eye as if you could in a real venue. Well, for many cases, actually, this is not material. You don't need to see the person's gesture to understand the arguments or the statement. But for some other cases, it might be very important, especially when it comes to witness examination. And I'll get onto that in the next few minutes. Less rapport, I think, less personal connection amongst the tribunal members. I mean, in the usual way, the three tribunal members will get together for dinner or something, or lunch, you know, the day before, a coffee, you know, have a discussion about the case and many other things. And there's quite a bit of a personal connection set up there. And a lot will be discussed about the case, and, you know, in the meeting or over lunch or dinner. And for the 7 or 10 days of hearing, we'll be having lunch and dinner every day. So there'll be a lot of discussion amongst us. Now, there's certainly less of that in the online proceeding, because, you know, you talk when you need and you hang up, and that's it. If there's something else you forgot, you email them through and we discuss over email. But it's not the same thing as when 3 people are in the room over a glass of red wine and talk about these things. It's just different. And I think for some of the cases, I think it would be more beneficial to put 3 of us in the same room and discuss these matters in depth. Finally, technical problems may get in the way, as you know. You know, Zoom may cut in and out. You have internet disconnection. You might have lost something. You didn't hear something. And when you look at the transcript, you know, it's too late to go back to the point. So sometimes there are some disadvantages. Again, for most cases I've run, it's not a major problem. You know, if you miss something, you can ask the question again. You say, oh, sorry, I missed that point 5 minutes ago. Can you repeat that? But for some other cases, it may be important. So that's a general run through the pros and cons of online proceeding. Now, let me go into some of the more nitty-gritty detail. The first thing I wanted to say is that I wanted to recommend against the hybrid proceeding, meaning both online and offline. I've done some of these whereby you have some of the parties, all of the parties with some of the tribunal members in the room, and the third tribunal member is somewhere else dialing in on Zoom. Some of the other participants are overseas and dialing in via Zoom or telephone conference or whatever. And my personal experience was that it was quite unsatisfactory in the sense that, I mean, sometimes there's an inequality. I mean, if only one party is in the room with some of the tribunal members and the other party is on the line, now that you could say there's a bit of an inequality there. And if it gets serious, it may be a ground for setting aside the award. But for most of the cases, I find it somewhat unsatisfactory in the sense that the online participants may not be able to follow the entire proceedings. The people who are in the room just keep talking away, and very quickly they forget there are people who are trying to follow the conversation online. And there's always a bit of incongruity, discontinuity, disconnection between the two teams, online and offline. And I think that's very unsatisfactory. For some of these cases, I had to listen again to the recording. It took several days, but it's not ideal. Fully virtual proceedings, in my view, are generally recommended for a lot of the cases. First of all, especially where it is permitted by the laws and the rules. This is very important, right? You've got to check that the laws and the rules in the particular place allow for virtual hearings to take place. And especially if the parties together requested, consented, that's great. You know, maybe you should go for it. If there are travel restrictions, when you can't go to Singapore or Vietnam, what too bad you do the virtual hearing. most of the cases that I've done are sort of small, medium-sized cases. I think $10, $50 million at most that I've done. I have not done a $50 million claim virtually. It may well be doable, but I've not done one. The cases where the council and tribunal members can communicate effectively online, and this is important. The council and the tribunal must feel comfortable. If for whatever reason you feel uncomfortable because of the language issue or some other issues, then you should think again, right? You've got to be able to communicate freely, comfortably online with each other. Same with witnesses. You've got to be comfortable as a witness to testify online, understand the question from counsel of the other side and the tribunal members online, and you can present comfortably. This is very, very important. Therefore, if virtual hearing is not permitted by applicable laws or rules, or one of the parties objects, this is important. Then you should reconsider very carefully. And most of the time, then you should not go ahead with a virtual hearing. Large-sized cases with complex issues, where evidence needs to be viewed directly. If you need to look at something directly, physically, and you can't see them on the screen, or the tribunal or the counsel couldn't communicate effectively online, or the witnesses couldn't talk online freely, then you should really reconsider virtual proceedings. If there's a possibility of settlement, someone was referring to this before, if you think this case might be settled, then maybe better for people to be together physically, because then that might run your better chance of the settlement being reached when you are together as opposed to being online. Or there are some other requirements for a physical appearance. In those cases, I think a virtual proceeding is not recommended. So, virtual hearing is not the same as real, as I was saying, and in most cases it's only 90%. But for many cases, 90% as good as 100%. And so these advantages and disadvantages need to be weighed up together, and you come out with a conclusion whether a virtual hearing is feasible and recommendable in this case or not. And in my view, for most cases that I've done, they should be encouraged. Now, if you've decided to go with a virtual hearing, I've got some tips that I've drawn from my cases. For example, I need 3 computers in front of me. I need a big computer to see everybody on the screen. I need a document to see the transcript going on my right-hand side. So I glance at the transcript, it keeps going. And I have another computer for typing my notes or look at the documents that need to be pulled up. I may need a separate phone just in case my internet breaks down. I can use my 3G or 4G for internet backup. I need a WhatsApp group with my co-arbitrators to discuss a few things we need to. Sometimes I need, alternative power sources. And sometimes I need an IT person online to help me when things go tough. The order of speaking should be specified and strictly adhered to. Only one person can speak at a time. If you're together in a room, sometimes one interrupts the other and one cuts in and explains a few things. You can't do so in a virtual hearing. You need to strictly adhere to the speaking sequence that's been agreed. You need to speak more slowly and clearly. You need to be flexible with the time zone, and you need to check the transcript regularly to make sure that things are recorded correctly. So, in my view, virtual hearings will likely become the norm for a lot of the cases. Not all the cases, but become the norm for many, many cases. And this may fundamentally change the arbitration world. I think for all of us, counsel, parties, experts, and arbitrators, we need to adapt, to prepare and learn these skills and get on with it. I think this will reduce the cost substantially. And I think the world will look different. No, you can no longer say, oh, it's too expensive to go to London or Hanoi or wherever to arbitrate. Well, you don't have to go there anymore. Thank you very much for your attention. And I will now pass the mic back to Mr. Zoom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Herb. I agree with you that I don't think that after the pandemic, the user is willing to pay for your first class airplane or 5-star hotel just to litigate in the arbitration, it will not exist anymore. So what are the disadvantages of the virtual hearing? You still have to adapt it. And Vietnam and maybe China is a few countries which we are very lucky that there's no social distancing or no lockdown to compare with the rest of the world. But our luck may become our disadvantage because we are not very familiar with the virtual hearing. So the audience should pay more attention, and I'm sure that the council or user will have to learn more. And many arbitration institutions will offer their assistance to the user, to the council, and arbitrator, especially at the ICC. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Mr. Kevin Kim, another Vice President of the ICC Court of International Arbitration. Mr. Kevin Kim is a senior partner at Peter & Kim in Seoul. He was previously a senior partner at BKN, Korea, where he's worked for the past 3 decades in various roles, including the co-founder and head of the International Arbitration Practice and head of the Domestic and National Dispute Group. Over the past 30 years, Kevin has acted as counsel, presiding arbitrator, co-arbitrator, or sole arbitrator in more than 300 cases of international arbitration under various arbitration rules. Recently, he is involved in several investment and commercial arbitration. Among other positions that he holds, Kevin is presently Vice President of the ICC, International Court of Arbitration, Advisory Board Member of the International Council of Commercial Arbitration, ICCA, and the Chairman of the Korean Commercial Arbitration Board, KCAB, International Arbitration Committee. In the past, Kevin has served as Secretary General of ICCA 2010-2014 and a member of the NCIA Court 2007-2012 and Vice Chair of the IBA Arbitration Committee. Today, Kevin will present to us the Seoul Protocol and the ICC Guidance Note. Thank Kevin, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jung. I'm very honored to speak in this session, and I love to go to Vietnam in person, but at least I can join this session virtually. I'm extremely happy. Let me share my PPT. Does it work? So today I'm going to explain about the 2 examples how we are dealing with virtual hearings in other organizations. Let me. Sorry, I'm trying to. So the 2 things is the first one is the Seoul Protocol, which we adopted. We mean the KCAB, Korea Commercial Arbitration Board, adopted in 2018 in connection with the virtual hearing. The second thing I want to introduce today is the ICC Guidance Note on the virtual hearing, which my colleague Qian Bao already mentioned. So the first thing is the virtual hearing became alive nowadays. This is a photo of our celebration of opening the Singapore office in April. So we couldn't even go to our Singapore office by ourselves. So we celebrate worldwide by we propose a virtual drink. So everybody prepares own drink and just we toast on screen. This became a big issue, but after this one, everybody follows. So now became the virtual drink became quite popular nowadays. So this shows that we are living with the virtual hearings, virtual life during this pandemic period. So Seoul Protocol, what is that? It's about what is best practice for planning or testing or conducting video conference in international arbitration. That is original thought, and why we prepare that. Actually, 2018. At that time, there's no pandemic issues. There is some pandemic issues, not as much as COVID-19. And nobody expect that this range of the pandemic would happen in the near future. We propose, actually, I personally propose this SOAP protocol because I just expect that we are going to use more technology, or particularly virtual hearing things more in the future. Many people just say that maybe not that much within 10 years, but my expectations were right, too much right, and now everybody using this virtual hearing thing. So all of a sudden, SOAP protocol became relatively popular. But that is we have to lead with that nowadays. So virtual hearing is we need that, but we in actual conducting virtual hearing, you have many things to consider. Unless you have a protocol already in place, you have to think about many other things, and you have many trial and errors, and sometimes parties have dispute on the certain issues. So at least we try to provide certain guidelines, certain things parties may think about. So that is the basically the reason why we prepared this SOAP protocol. So contents of the SOAP protocol is more focusing on the witness examination, because the arguments or the other preliminary sessions or a case management conference is called the CMC in ICC arbitration. That is normally done by telephone, and nowadays most cases by video call. But there's no much issue on that. Or the oral closing or certain arguments by the parties. Normally the virtual hearing is not a big issue. But in case of witness examination, people always express the concern about integrity or interference, any problems with or inequitable result because of imbalance in technology and other methods. So we're more focusing on the witness examination. And we had the idea that the video conferencing venue will be important, because actually lockdown situation, you have to do that or video conferencing from home. But if you're available to go any particular place, but you cannot travel, then you can go to some the place which is certified or approved by the tribunal. Then you have a good facility, and you just to make sure that your integrity of the witness examination. So we propose certain places, arbitration places, or the arbitration institutions, or the law firms, or any other place which can offer the technology assistance and the independent service to make sure that the proper examination could be done. And so for that purpose, we propose the observer's idea. The observer's idea is normally when you have a witness examination, then the both counsel, if they are available, they can attend in person, or they can send someone to see that whether everything is properly done. Because in the cross-examination by video, inevitably I have a lot of questions whether the witness can be coached, or say some message given, some other interference and assistance. There's something somebody may be threatened by others. So many things you have somebody need to make sure that is integrity of the virtual hearing. So we had the idea that an independent person, not necessarily a lawyer or any particular person, anybody who is independent and certify that, or just confirm that hearing is properly conducted, so that observer service could be provided by institution, again by lawyer or any other person who can be approved by the tribunal and parties. And also we are thinking about documents. So the document sharing, how documents are prepared, how documents are shared on the screen. Nowadays, because of virtual hearing, all documents actually provided by soft copies, and then there's a lot of programs are available to share the documents. And the technical requirements. So the level of the connections or the quality. Nowadays, people are talking about how much the witness should be close to the camera. There's sometimes you see my face from here. It's quite different from you see from here. So now there's I recently saw that the protocol that tribunal order that the witness should be within one meter's distance from the camera, kind of, or like a certain size of the appearance on the screen. So all those technical requirements is stipulated in the SOL protocol. And the other thing is that test of conference. We call it test run. So video conference always require test run. I recently had the ICSID Norman committee. I'm sitting as committee member, and we had about 4 or 5 different test runs. So test runs among the tribunal members, among the committee members, and the test run with the parties and the committee members, and then another test run to make sure that everything is properly done just before the hearing, because the procedure is so important, and the country interest involved. So the institution just to try to make sure everything is properly done. So test run is very important, and always a backup plan for the audio conference backup. Or normally we have a facilitator who provides the services of the proper connection, and they make sure that there's no echoes or interference from other speakers. So that is now well developed. My experience with the virtual hearing nowadays is there is not much the technical issues. The only problem is internet connection. Even in the developed countries, actually in particularly developed countries, if you're living in a very nice area, remote from the city, the internet connection is very bad. So sometimes we lost the arbitrators, many cases, or just bad connection, and just the voice was just interrupted. Then we have to stop the hearing. That causes the various issues. So the internet connection, make sure the internet connection, and then sometimes the microphone have the problem, and the speakers have problem, and then the document sharing has problems. So we just make sure that it's properly done. Interpretation is much more convenient in the virtual hearing because we have function of the interpretation. In case of particularly this one, Zoom, provide the interpretation function. So that is quite convenient. We provide simultaneous translation in the actual hearing is more often used. The other thing is recording. So most the virtual hearing function has a recording function. So that is a totally different outside, because nowadays almost all the hearing is recorded. Then you can see repeatedly about the portion. You can use the portion of the witness examination or the arguments by the parties at the closing. Not just quote the portion in writing, but by introducing video, what witness actually said, what expert actually said. So people have concern whether the tribunal can see the reactions or facial expressions of the witness. I would say yes, you can do that because you can see again, you can enlarge, and you can see the big screen if you want, and you have a slow play. Many ways you analyze what witness said and how the witness or the parties behave at the hearing. So this recording function make huge difference in the hearing dynamics. So that is the what we experienced so far. This is a photo of the one of our conference room was designed to accommodate the virtual hearing. So this year from March, I think I have more than 10 hearings in this facility, either as arbitrator or the counsel. Sometimes we have more than 20 people or 25 people together in the same room. We had hearings starting from 10:30 p.m., finishing 6 a.m. in the morning, 5 days in a row. That is quite typical when you have a hearing involving Europe and America. So that is the daily life for us nowadays. So you see that the virtual hearing, you probably need to invest a bit more on the facility because you need good camera, good microphone, and a good facility to accommodate such a situation. I totally agree with Mr. Hopdang that he used the 3 screens. We always use 3 screens for the transcriber service and the main video together with document sharing. So that became quite normal nowadays. So brief note about the ICC note. ICC note was actually started prepared just after this pandemic issue became serious. I remember that Qian Bao and I, as Vice President of ICC Code, we get together and we have numerous of the conference calls and discussions to make this note. And then the reason why we make this note is ICC support virtual hearing. So ICC do not hesitate to say you have to be cautious about virtual hearing. Instead, we just say that virtual hearing is recommended. So that that is the guidance. Just to try to develop what should be the cyber protocol at the hearing, and what is the procedural issues to be taken by the parties and the tribunal. And it provides checklist. What should be the check? So what the video connection, preparation plan, test to learn, technical issues, specifications, and the confidentiality, privacy, security. So we are discussing about the various experience or the whole story about the virtual hearing or the video conferencing. So we just make sure that everything is properly reflected in checklist. I think we have quite good checklist for the virtual hearing. I think that is all for me now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. There's a lot of questions. So let me run through some of that and hope that you will answer that. The first question I mentioned from the beginning, from the Chinese enterprise operating in Vietnam. Let me read it. I love the idea of the online arbitration, but as I know, the electronic or online hearing trial are not yet accepted in litigation or arbitration in Vietnam. Should I choose seat of arbitration in Singapore to enjoy the advancement of the IT there, or should I stay with Vietnam seat? Thank you. Perhaps Dr. Herb, do you think that you can deal with this question?
Sure, Mr. Zoom. Sure. Well, I think there are, I just make a couple of points. I think by referring to the seat, you are referring to the relevant institution. The question is, should they choose the SIC or the VAAC? Yes, the reality in the VAAC proceeding is that you need the parties' consent, both parties' consent, to have a virtual hearing at the moment. Things might change in the future, but as of the moment, you need both parties' consent. So if there's a possibility that the other party is not going to consent, you cannot have a virtual hearing, which might result in a delay in the proceeding. So that's, but there have been a lot of cases in which the parties have consented. And I think someone was saying Mr. Data, someone was saying since March, the VIC has conducted 14 online proceedings. And I have done one myself, even before March, so that didn't count. So it is still a possibility. At the current moment, if you want to be sure to have a right to maximize the chance of a virtual hearing, even where the parties do not consent, then the SIC has an advantage in that regard. The tribunal can make an order for a virtual hearing, even without the parties' consent. In terms of the IT advantages, I mean, I'm not so sure if Singapore is better than Vietnam or in other places in terms of facility. I mean, these days you can have, top speed internet, 5G or 6G or whatever, and, it doesn't matter wherever you are with just a phone. And so I'm not sure if that is a consideration. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you, Mr. Zoom.
Thank you, Herb. Actually, I did 2 hearings, mostly it's a hybrid hearing, and I'm sure now is VIAC as an arbitration institution also try to persuade the party to accept the virtual hearing. They offer the party on the case management conference virtually first. So the party will share the experience of the virtual hearing, and then they change their mind and accept that the virtual hearing is okay. Good. So the second question is, I had one participant a virtual hearing by VIC, to be more exact, a semi-online hearing with 2 members of the tribunal physically joining an offline hearing at VIC office. The third arbitrator were in Australia, the claimant counsel were in Singapore, the expert were in Vietnam. Let's see. I think it's done through. I think it disappeared. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. It seems that the audience would like to raise that question directly to the panelists. Yeah. Yeah, we listening.
Okay. Hi, arbitrator. So my name is Hương, and I want to raise a question that I had once participated in a virtual hearing by VIA, to be more exact, the semi-online hearing with 2 members of tribunal physically joining an offline hearing at VIA office, and the third arbitrator was in Australia. The claimant counsel was in Singapore, and the expert was in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. And I joined in an offline hearing at VIA. From the experience, should claimant, in case I was in the counsel team of claimant, be worried about this option of hearing? And I hope to receive your advice. Thank you so much.
Herb, do you think that you can cover this? Thank you.
Sure. Yes, I think the short answer is, in my view, I think you should be worried. That's the first, as I was saying at the beginning in my presentation, you should be worried because there is a possibility of breakdown of communication, in the sense that your counsel in Singapore might not be able to follow some of the conversations taking place in the VIC's office, or maybe the arbitrators couldn't follow the explanation from the counsel, and your counsel could not see it from Singapore online. So, however, that is not to say that this cannot be done. You can still do it, and it may be the best thing you can do in the circumstances, as opposed to waiting for 2 more years for a physical hearing. And the solution then is you must be able to ensure that there is no miscommunication, there is no breakdown communication. So if you're sitting there as part of the team, you've got to watch over everybody and immediately tell your counsel in Singapore or other people that, look, this person is not following what they're saying, please say it again. Or this person was saying something else to this person, please pick it up, something. So there's got to be some coordination there, ideally conducted by you as part of the team. But clearly there is a risk of messages getting either lost or mixed or misunderstood, and you need to do something more to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. The next, Kevin,
something.
Yeah, please.
In Zoom, the video call, and also other video call normally have breakout room function. So what's happening nowadays in the actual hearing? At the end of the hearing, or just when you break for the coffee break, then the tribunal members automatically move to the breakout rooms. Then the tribunal members will discuss about the case, and the parties also move to their own breakout rooms. And then after they finish that, they come back to the main hearing room. If the tribunal members and one party just sit in the same room, that function is totally useless. They undermine a lot of difficulties in the communication among the tribunals and then the party. You can just point out that is practically wrong, because the tribunal members supposed to have the deliberation or discussions during the break, and parties also need to discuss by themselves virtually. And they just like the parties and the tribunal members, some tribunal members sit together in the same room. That is to undermine a lot of equal treatment in the virtual hearing.
Oh, thank Kevin. Just in time, because there's a question about deliberation of the tribunal. The user said that I do not think virtually meet with each other could be effective for the tribunal to have a good deliberation. Could you share your experience on this matter? I'm sure Kevin can share his experience.
Yeah, actually, I think it is true that the tribunal members have no opportunity to drink or eat together, and they're joking about the many things after hearing. But as I told you, every break you automatically move to the breakout room. Then in a sense you have more opportunity to discuss about the case. A recent case I actually attended, the SIAC hearing. I attended as arbitrator. We have 6 hours, and we have the rule that every one normally in an actual hearing is 1.5 hours, but the virtual hearing is more tiresome. So we agree that every hour we have break, 10 minutes break. So during the every break, we are discussing about the case among the tribunal. And then we just when the after hearing, we have about 30 minutes deliberation virtually, and then we immediately agree on the conclusion of the case. And then the chairman prepared the draft, and then we issued the word quite quickly after hearing. So in person meeting, you're quite tempted to just drink coffee or do something else, but the virtual hearing, you have more incentive to discuss and talk about the case, and more focusing on the issues. I think it really depends. It's not necessarily undermine the ability to deliberate.
Thank you, Kevin. As a question about the online mediation, mediation online seems interesting, but I believe only small dispute we need. The bigger cases could not mediate online. it is too uncertain and risky. How should a counsel persuade the client using online mediation? Any advice? Thank you. Perhaps Mr. Dap can help to cover this question, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dũng. Before answering the question, I would like to show you the rear hearing room of VIC and the background, not virtual. You see behind me the rear hearing room background, not the virtual one, because we are now talking all about virtual, and it seems to make us virtual and less emotional to the participants. So we intentionally change my background to the rear hearing room, new hearing room of VIC with international standard. We hope to welcome international mediators and arbitrators for big case, international case at VIAC and to serve you. That's another thing. But now back to the question. Well, actually, Dr. Herb has got all the sum ups of advantage and disadvantages of virtual hearing, virtual mediation, virtual arbitration. And I agree with him, and I just emphasize that it depends on your selection. VMC provides both traditional mediation and online mediation. Of course, for online mediation, it is said that it matches with small claim or less complex claims. So, for example, large, big construction dispute claims, we may refer you to traditional mediation, which take benefit of all the, for example, as I said, mediator skill who meet you direct in person, that would make your dispute resolution more efficient. So about the costs, right? You asked about the cost. We plan to make our mediation cost for online much cheaper or much lower cost, because we see that one of the considerations of user when they select either traditional one or on online one is the cost. So we serve you the client in that factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. There's another question is, if I use online service for my case and join an online hearing, how the institution like VIC or KCAB or ICC ensures the person joining the online are truly them and there is no fraud? I'm sure that Kevin can cover both KCAB and ICC. Kevin?
Yes, that is why we normally have facilitator. So facilitator makes sure that the invitation was given to the person, a relevant person. And normally at the very beginning of the hearing, the person wants to join, and then the facilitator allow the person come in, and then ask the person to disclose identity. So during the hearing, normally, we can just sound off and the video off. You just put your own name on there. But at the beginning, normally the facilitator ask the person who is attending, identify who is the person, and then who is sitting with that person. But because sometimes the separate people attend together with the other person, so you have to identify the person. The practice same in the ICC arbitration. It's not necessarily recommended by the ICC, but the ICC checklist have such an issue of confidentiality.
Thank you. What about VIC? Nat, can you cover this?
Yes, you see that by the law of arbitration in Vietnam and VIC rules of arbitration, virtual hearing can only take place if the two parties agree to that. And then you see the two parties through the exchange of submissions and through the previous, for example, negotiation or even a quarrel or debates, they know each other. They know the face of the other. They know the voice, everything, and not only the face when you see on the screen here, but the voice and the reasoning, the style, everything. So we may not see that the actual risk or problem for virtual hearing in Vietnam. Yes.
Thank you. Good. I understand that Ms. Phi Thuy Linh may have a question for the panelists. Linh, ready? Yes, we are listening. Phi Thuy Linh is still there?
Sorry, Ms. Phi Thuy Linh, are you there with us? So if you are not available now, I would suggest you invite the second guest who will be raising the hand.
Okay, the second from Lê Ánh Nguyệt, Dr. Nguyệt, are you there?
Hello.
I think you have to unmute. Yep.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
This is Lee from Phước and Partner Law Firm. Thank you very much for your very interesting discussion on the virtual hearing. Excuse me? Excuse me.
Yes.
Actually, I just sent my 2 questions regarding to the arbitration fee. Actually, in the COVID-19, I think this is the extraordinary circumstances, but it raised a very important issue on the arbitration hearing. Because for the normal hearings, I think the cost for the opening the hearing is very sustainable. But in this kinds of hearing, I mean virtual hearing, so you can save a lot of money for the space, for the room, and also for the flight of the arbitrator, for the hotel and everything. So I think in this case, we might reconsider about the arbitration fee for the virtual hearing. That is my first concern. And the second question is regarding to, because according to the Vietnamese arbitration law, that might have a possibility that the arbitral award to be set aside. So do you think that the problem can be fixed in the near future, or it have to be wait for a long time for that process? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyệt. I understand that ICC Hearing Center in Paris is very pleased to offer their assistance to the counsel and arbitrator, but I'm not sure that there is any special fee policy discount for the user during the pandemic. Maybe may I ask Kevin Kim to to tell about this?
As far as I know, there is no discussion about discount of fees in any institution. But that when it becomes just a normal thing, but in any event, the parties can save a lot of cost, hotel fares or the travel cost, and then the lawyer's fee actually as well. The in time charges will be much smaller. Because there's no travel time involved, and there's more intensive preparation, and the tribunal can meet on the on screen for deliberation, quite convenient time, very short time, so don't have to travel. So at the end of the day, you will save a lot of money in the arbitration. It is true that arbitrator also save time. So maybe you have to consider whether we offer any discounted price or also reduce the cost in assessing arbitrator fees in the future within the ICC. The second question was
Well, that is about Vietnam market. So I will leave the question to
okay.
Mr. Dat. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Dat, can you inform the audience about the support policy of VIEC and VMC during the pandemic? Thank you.
We supported until the 30th end of June, so it was the past already. Well, in general, we talk about the cost. If the party select virtual hearing, we would like to say that cost of arbitration includes many factors. For hearing, the practice at VIA, the hearing room, you've just seen the big room here. We do not charge the party for using our own rooms. So virtually or physically, no surcharge at all. The point, as I agree with Mr. Kevin Kim, is about the traveling costs for the arbitrator. So of course, if arbitrator just stay at home and have hearing on the screen, then no cost for traveling. That's the only part of the difference between virtual hearing and physical hearings. Yeah.
Thank you, Das. There's a question directly to Kevin Kim. Are there any standard ODR protocol for virtual hearing? And what are the merits and demerits of such protocol?
Yeah, in every case nowadays, the parties agree the protocol for the virtual hearing. A lot of negotiation, but we normally start with checklist of ICC checklist, and then we I think it's nowadays we built up some practice, so not very much controversial, but sometimes we still have issue that the one party want to participate with the tribunal members, or some tribunal members we have the objection. But almost all the cases, the consensus is that everybody, the parties can get together, but parties and tribunals should be separate, and even the witness should stay in a different room, even though that the person can be available with one particular party. But to make sure that integrity, the witness normally join from different room. So that, for example, that practice became quite standard nowadays based upon the experience. So we are not building up the experience, and then we have another protocol. Is the parties recommended to have 3 screens? That's what Dr. Hope Dang actually proposed. So that became we have different connections. Sometimes we have Zoom connection together with the other connection to make sure that the document sharing is be done through different connection. Because when you have a document sharing from the Zoom connection, then witness cannot scroll down and up the documents. So witness can answer based upon what the counsel show the documents. So in order to allow the witness we see the documents and freely scroll up and down, we normally provide separate computer to the witness. The witness just download the documents and review documents by himself or herself. So that is the function that should be arranged. So again, this is based upon the previous experience. We are not developing more detailed protocol on that issue. Actually, that going back to the SOAP protocol, what we are doing is that now that we are making SOAP protocol 2, version 2, based upon the actual experience we are building up.
Thank you, Kevin. I remember the recent annual working session of the ICC, that the number of the cases as ICC increasing to compare with the same time last year, right? So we have a lot of experience in using the virtual hearing. There's the question, the internet is under censor in China. It had to deny it. is this a threat for my case with Chinese partner if we agree to make it online? Do you have any experience about it? Thank you. Kevin, do you have any experience with virtual hearing in China?
Yes, actually, we had a hearing against the Chinese government-related party. So this concern was raised, and particularly there is some concern whether we can use Zoom. So Zoom have some security issue. Now I understand that nowadays Zoom actually solved the problem, but we still have some concern about the confidentiality and security. So I understand that some organizations prefer to use different connection, and some law firms have policy just to use the different connection other than Zoom. But I'm not sure whether that is a real concern. Maybe you have to. So far, I haven't heard anything. Just like this Zoom, the virtual connection was hijacked by the others. But we cannot guarantee, right? Because anybody, maybe any skilled person can hijack our communication. Whatever tools you are going to use, they can hijack what you are communicating by hijacking the computer or the terminal. So that is inherent problem, and that is risk of the confidentiality of the arbitration.
Yeah, so that's why the cybersecurity is now so important, right? I'm not sure if I missed any question. As organizer, would you please help me if there is any question? Oh yes, I have a question. If the online code is hacking, what are the solutions that can be able to solve the problem? Kevin, can you?
So if online is a problem, then what will be the solution?
Yeah.
Then the solution will be just telephone conferencing. So because you can join by telephone, as long as we can identify the person, sometimes you just even in Zoom connection or other connection tool, you have function just to put your photos rather than your actual appearance, or even without photo, somebody can participate by just telephone and just a voice only participation. It's when you actually attend the hearing, that's okay. Although you cannot see the facial expression and so in case of witness examination, you may have issue. Particularly, the witness cannot participate by video, but in case of arguments or the questioners, the point of view, it should be okay. You just proceed only by voice.
Thank you, Kevin. There's two questions about involving Chien Bao. I'm not sure if Chien still here. Chien Bao, no, she may leave. I'm sorry, but Chien Bao is not here. So yes, about the cost. The IT technology may increase the cost, so that is make the price of the service. Both arbitration or mediation service may be more expensive. What do you think, Mr. Dat?
Yeah, well, actually, a center like VIAC or VMC has its own investment. So we spend quite a lot into the platform and the facilities. So platform is virtual, facilities are real, okay? So yeah, we are ready to serve. But as I said about costs, for mediation, we provide you with online mediation at much lower cost. But for virtual hearing, I explained already, it does not affect the cost of arbitration much, except for the traveling cost of arbitrators.
Okay, I think that now it's 4 p.m. local time, and it's time for us to close the webinar. I'm very pleased that today we have two vice presidents of ICC, Mr. Kevin Kim and Chien Bao, who is a famous arbitrator in the Asia, and I'm sure that the Vietnamese audience will be more familiar with your name. And we thank you very much for your contribution to the growing market in Vietnam on arbitration and the ADR. And now I'm requested by the organizer to introduce the next webinar of the VIAC, which will take place on 30 October about the international arbitration procedure. And after that webinar is on the 13th November, is about the investment mediation. We hope that the audience will join us next time. And thank you for all the speaker, all the moderator, and thank you mostly for the audience. Many of them come from abroad, and we hope that we will soon see you in the next webinar. Thank you very much, and goodbye now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Herb. Thank you, Tini.
Thank you and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.